Welcome back to AIBiz, the show where we decode how innovation, intelligence, and intentional leadership shape the future of business. I am your host, Sayan, and today we are driving a conversation that feels more than urgent, um, which is about digital dignity, ethical AI, and leadership in the age of intelligence. As technology becomes more powerful, the real question isn't just what we can build with it, but how we build it and for whom. So, joining me today is Giorgio Natili, a visionary engineering leader who's been shaping the digital world from browser technologies to confidential AI. His work challenges us to ask one powerful question: how do we create technology that honors human dignity while still driving progress? So, if you're a business leader, innovator, or anyone curious about the moral compass behind modern tech, this one's for you. So, Giorgio, welcome to AI Biz. I can already tell this conversation is going to make all of us rethink how we define intelligent innovation.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me and for introducing these topics. You're absolutely right. We're speaking about topics that are important because are bringing the ethical aspect of AI, not only from a technical standpoint. Because one thing is what we can do around any model or around any AI application, but an even
Right.
more important thing is thinking ethically, even before start implementing anything, because that will preserve even more deeply the digital dignity of human beings.
Right, absolutely, spot on. So, what does digital dignity mean to you? In a world, especially that is increasingly driven by algorithms and automation.
Well, there are many aspects. There is one very specific that is giving the ability to people to control their identity and their data. This it's related to everything from your personal information to your ethical information or your cultural information. Think about simply whatever underrepresented the community that get some pictures that get been photographed and stored in LLM. Now these pictures are maybe used or this drawing used to generate something out of AI. Do they know? Are they aware? That's one aspect, right? On top of the simple names or name
Right.
ethical aspect of your own data set. But there is more. Digital dignity is giving an equitable access to all the individuals so that they can have access to digital resource and can use technology without sacrificing their dignity. Think about every single free plan of whatever LLM. You are basically not selling your soul to the devil, but close, right? Because you're giving them your data and your data train other model that might be appropriate in some cases, but in some others, no, right? And on the other end, there is the need to addressing a power imbalance that is happening between the different people, different companies, and so on. So there are large corporations that have a lot of data, large
Mhm.
corporations that have access to a lot of resources. Are they
Right.
making decisions that are ethical? And
Right.
again, I'm not talking about the decision of the model itself, but is getting more automation to fire people an ethical decision? I don't believe so, right? We heard businesses for years saying, oh, if I had a double of my employees, I would do X, Y, and Z. Well, now they have double of their employees because you are able to increase the productivity of your employees. Why they're not taking any, not all of the businesses are taking a proactive action to reshape the competencies of employees, to reshape the direction of their business. And the other thing that is important, important aspect of digital dignity, is that you should keep in mind in your decision how to combat the dehumanization process that is happening, where there is a tendency now to reduce human being to simple productivity data points. I don't think it's part of our digital dignity. If we want AI to be seen as an improvement from human being versus a threat, we need to act responsibly. And this goes into the digital dignity in more on top of what you can do from removing biases, reducing hallucination, and making
Right.
AI ethical from a technical point of view.
Right, right. I mean, that's a profound perspective, Giorgio. It's easy to forget that behind every data point is a human story, and that really brings us to the heart of today's conversation, which is somewhere related to ethics in action. We hear the term ethical AI everywhere, but translating it from a big idea into everyday practices where most of the companies struggle. Some don't even keep it transparent. So my question to you is, what is I'm trying to understand is that how does organization actually make ethics part of their daily decision making and not just a statement on their website? And I know like some of the tech people out there would say that, oh, we tokenize the data and that we remove the PIIs from the data, and that's how your information is safe with us. But is that it? Like, are we going deeper into the data? How are we making sure that the ethics are being followed when whenever we are taking data from the user?
Well, so the first thing that I want to answer is that when people say your data are safe with us, it's an overstatement. We have seen security breach everywhere: banking, government, big and small corporates. So there is obviously an inherent risk. But with this, I'm
Right.
not telling people don't trust anyone, don't share any data. That's not the point. The point is how the data get reused. And
Right.
although there are techniques like differential privacy, masking, obfuscation of data, at the end of the day, when you inject some data point, PII data, into an LLM, these data then train the model and became part of the embeddings of the model and the biases of the model. And there are
Right.
techniques to reverse engineer what people can get back from this data. So
True.
there is another aspect. There is a lot of LLM that are open source that is great. Don't get me wrong, but at the same point, if you build an application based on an open source LLM, if you don't set up the proper guardrails, the proper constraints, the proper infrastructure, the risk is that hackers, knowing that they have the source code of an open source model, they can reverse engineering whatever you are doing. So
True.
data are safe, but they are never safe. Um, at the same time, you asked how people can make these companies being ethical
Right.
from an AI standpoint, not only as a statement on the website. For me, the rule of thumb is that although we are moving in a very fast paced environment, instead of running at 100 miles per hour, just drive at 95. You're still fast. That
Mhm.
5 miles will help you to have the time to ask you the right question, to ask your team the right question. Why we're doing this?
Right.
Why we are implementing this solution? Why we're taking this shortcut? Recently, I was in a conversation about speech to text model where there was the desire from the research team to have access to the full raw uh, speech of people that was speaking into this model. Well, these open a lot of problems, right? Simple requests, but then when you have these data that maybe if they are in medical or law, whatever critical conversation, you are exposing PII data, PHI data to your researchers, and that's not fair, right? So ask yourself, why I'm doing this? What are the consequences? What is the cost of not doing this? And how the digital dignity of a human being is respected. This will not drive you in infinite loop of conversation, but will keep building a cohesive, ethical approach to AI and technology in general in your group.
All right, that feels very real, Giorgio. Like progress without purpose can be powerful, but not always right. And speaking of purpose, is there this one area that that's really redefining how we think about, you've talked about responsibility in tech, which is confidential AI, and you have been right at the forefront of that shift. So, how do you see this technology reshaping ideas of data privacy and trust?
So during my time at Opaque System, I worked a lot on confidential AI that is an intersection between AI workflows like Spark jobs or agentic workflows and confidential computing. Confidential computing, in my opinion, in 10 years from now will be not anymore a niche, but will be a de facto standard because simply the fact that you can isolate processes and memory in some trusted execution environment that are not accessible from other third-party software to still to some limits, right? If you have access to the hardware, you can access to almost everything, but it's way more complicated. This will help to shape a different approach to AI, where data that are the gold, right, the essence of all AI, can be treated with the respect of privacy and regulations. So um, every company that I work with, every organization that I work with, I really promote a lot what we are doing on privacy, how we are preserving security, and so on. Confidential computing for me, it's a default tool that I go to after that experience at Opaque because I learned the importance of it. And confidential AI, it's nothing more than respecting these boundaries.
Mhm.
Everybody can implement it. It's not needed to just go and buy a system or a solution like what Opaque is doing. You can get it at Microsoft. You can get at Amazon. Cloud offerings have building blocks of confidential AI. Then you can go into way complex configurations and infrastructure, looking at the security mesh, maybe integrating asynchronous TLS or attested TLS, mutual TLS, many things, right?
Right,
The
right.
time you spend in
Absolutely.
security, it's infinite. But think about it. Whenever you do something, if you're treating data that are very, very, very sensible, confidential computing, differential privacy, confidential computing again because it's more powerful than differential privacy, and think out of the box and look at the cloud service provider that can support your journey.
Absolutely. I think that should be the first step for anyone who is working at the forefronts of AI, or just maybe thinking to start or launch their own unique product. And Giorgio, like that's like I think that the future really depends on the people building a product, right? So, as a leader, how do you guide your team to strike the balance between ambition and accountability? Like, I know this for a reason that when people are too ambitious, that ambition can overshadow ethics. Maybe I would say accountability. So, how do you strike that balance, especially when working on something as impactful as AI?
So, first of all, let me start to clarify. By accountability, you mean not accountability on their deliverables, but accountability on how the solution or the new software, the new product
Right,
is impacting the world. So they want
right,
you to be accountable for the world. Or, well,
right.
there are several tools that I use. If I'm when I operate in a regulated environment, I have the regulations to my advantage. GDPR, HIPAA, um, the Consumer Privacy Act, all these regulations are really a good tool to use
Hmm.
for you
Hmm.
to shape how your organization and your team operate. But on the other hand, there are these open-ended questions that sometimes are philosophical, but sometimes are very important, right? Why we're doing this? What happens to this data? How you manage this data in 1 year from now, 10 years from now? So asking questions to your team, making them reflecting, it's important. You make them thinking about aspects that you don't, or they don't. They don't, not because they know less than you, simply because they have a different perspective, right? Especially individual
Right.
contributors. For them, the main goal is to deliver their contribution. But you can do that. And the other thing that I usually tend to do is creating a cross-functional collaborations where, for instance, you can have MLOps,
Mm,
research, and engineering sitting down and focusing around the same problem, right? So instead of creating pairs of one engineer and one researcher that is still powerful, I tend to create a cross-functional group of people that work on a specific problem, and then over there I have different perspectives, right? The different perspectives usually challenge each other, and given the directions that you get from your overall leadership and your team lead or organization lead, you will be able to influence that. And the problem is that it will never be perfect. So unless you want to believe that it's perfect, will never be perfect. But taking actions from a technical standpoint, like guardrails that can input and can guardrail the input and output. From an ethical standpoint, speaking about ethics, right? Not only from a technical standpoint, from a decisional standpoint, and encouraging cross collaboration, create a sufficient enough framework that, when supported by regulations, create a very responsible and accountable approach to AI.
I love that, Georgia. It's like, following that's something you stated right at the beginning, is that following the compliances, right? And most people would stop there, but actually the thing is, you need to cross question. If you're in a leadership position, you need to cross question your team. Why are we doing things a certain way and not the other way, right? And that's something, I would say, which appears to be trivial, but actually it isn't. It plays a huge role in setting the ethics right at the start, and that's a very refreshing perspective that you have put forward, Giorgio. And just before we, just to wrap this off, I'm curious, where do you see the next frontier of ethical AI taking us?
Well, this is a very deep question. Let me share one anecdote and then my answer.
Right.
2 weeks ago, I was volunteering at an elementary school, explaining what is AI engineering to fourth and fifth graders, so kids with 9 and 10 years old.
Hmm.
I spoke with 7 different groups of about 25 kids each. The most frequent question that I got is, do you think that AI will take over the world and will kill all of us? So the reason why I'm sharing this is because if kids are scared about this, it means that right now the society is scared about it. And
Right.
in fact, if you look at the society, there are two different reactions to AI. People, actually, more than two, but let's have two different groups. AI utilizer, actually three groups: AI implementers, AI utilizer, and the people that is not at all using AI, saying it doesn't work, saying
Hmm.
it's going to be a bubble, and so on. So, to be very ethical, you need to bridge this gap and make people that is uncomfortable using AI try to
Yeah.
understand how to use AI. At the same time, if you want to be at the forefront of ethical AI, you have to evangelize and explain how to use the tools for good. So, cheating on homework, getting back to the school, it's not a good usage of AI. Using AI to criticize your work and see how you can improve it, it's a good
Hmm.
usage. As a parent, being simply away from AI or preventing this from preventing the users to your kids is not an ethical approach. Understanding it, setting up boundaries, it's a very ethical. I have a workspace where my daughter work that is completely designed to don't provide a straight answer, but just to follow specific guidelines that I created. And it took me 30 minutes to create it. So it's possible to do it for everyone. Where she doesn't get answers, she get challenged, enforced critical thinking, and basically became a brainstorming session. That's, I think, it's great usage of AI for any kids. We are the forefront of AI, ethical AI. And by we, I mean not only leaders, each of us, in our day-by-day actions, in our day-by-day usage of AI.
That's uh, that's wonderfully put into perspective. Thank you, Giorgio, for sharing. Such a great analogy, especially by giving that example. And yeah, that's true. We need to put this into perspective that a lot of people aren't ready to adopt yet. Not just kids, I would say, but also in the corporate, where people are still reluctant to, leave their traditional workflows and worked on whatever approaches work for the organization. But my point is that's the starting point, and I love how you framed that, Giorgio. So before we wrap this up, I would just love to ask for all the listeners listening to us right now, what's the best way to reach out to you?
The best way to reach out to me is through LinkedIn, where you can find my profile with my name and surname, Giorgio Natili, or giorgionatili.com, that is currently under construction, so it's a little bit messy right now, but will be maybe up and running in the next 2-3 weeks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Giorgio. Dear listeners, I will have this in the show notes for you so you can check them out anytime you want at your own convenience. And with that, unfortunately, comes an end to today's amazing conversation with Giorgio. Giorgio, thank you so much for such a thoughtful and grounding conversation. You have reminded us that in the race towards intelligence, integrity has to lead the way, because at the end of the day, ethical AI is just about writing more efficient algorithms. It's about better intentions. So, for everyone listening, I want you to take a moment to reflect on the technology that you use, design, or even lead. Does it respect the dignity of people around you and the people it serves? I think that's where the real innovation begins. You have been listening to AIBiz. I am Sayan, and I'm signing off for today. Until next time, stay mindful, stay human, and stay curious. Well, thank you so much, Giorgio. This was really fun, to connect with you and have your thoughts on ethical AI personally.